Hey guys, what is happening? AnimetalViking here, and today I am trying my hand at a type of content that's a little bit different from what I usually do, so hopefully all goes well. And basically what I'm doing today is covering a tweet that went pretty viral. As you can see here on the screen, this user posted a tweet here, a quote tweet that is in response to another user that's got, well, at the time of recording this, 9.5 million views compared to the original tweets, which only got a few 100,000. So yeah, basically I'm just going to be covering this tweet. Like, sure, it's very likely that this tweet could just be bait, or if it's not, and this person's being serious, it doesn't matter either way, because, regardless of how anime discussions tend to go on Twitter, which I very often really hate, or just anime posts on Twitter, I tend to hate how they normally are these days. There's no actual discussion. It's just people stating their opinions as facts and then getting salty about it. I thought this tweet was interesting, not just because of the fact that it went viral. That's that's not even a component to it at all. I think the thing that makes this interesting is the fact that this tweet is something that actually brings up a lot of things that I tend to think about when it comes to consuming a lot of anime and manga, or just fiction in general. But in this case, I'm going to be focusing specifically on anime and manga. So, guys, if you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And, guys, also make sure you go head over to the main channel, AnimetalViking, so that you can see the bigger, more well-produced content over there. My series, Let's Construct a Concept Album, Metalhead Reviews, Anime Songs, other analysis discussion videos, my podcast, the Animetalcast, all that's over there on the main channel, so make sure you go subscribe to that as well. And also be sure to check out my Patreon, where you can get access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes stuff. Not only that, you will be able to see behind-the-scenes previews and snippets of my own upcoming manga project that I am working on with fellow South African artist Dean Brawson. So yeah, we're going to be posting things like storyboards and concept art and other early planning stuff and whatnot there. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, make sure you go check it out. Anyway, plugs aside, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this video. So I'm going to try and keep this video as brief as I possibly can. I do have a tendency to ramble if I don't have a script in front of me, so I do apologize if it goes on a bit longer than usual, but I'm going to try and keep this as short and sweet as possible and get to the point. So basically what this user has done here is they did a reply quote tweet to this person here. This person here basically says, "I'm not kidding when I say Thorfinn's short blades has more depth than the entirety of Demon Slayer." And then of course you got your typical Twitter trend lately, which is this is better than this, the typical thing that tends to be going around on Twitter these days with a lot of anime accounts. And then this person over here, believe it or not, fellow South African from the looks of it, possibly living in Japan, they are saying here that Demon Slayer as a series gets more hype and is better written than Vinland Saga, in my opinion. The animation is breathtaking and the series has broken numerous records from manga sales to box office sales, so let's not disrespect Demon Slayer. Okay, so there's a few things to unpack here with this tweet. The first thing is that, believe it or not, I actually agree with the majority of the stuff this user is saying. And I will tell you which aspects I agree with and what I do disagree with. I think you guys can already probably tell what is the thing I disagree with, but I'm going to cover the stuff that I agree with first, just so you can show that, as a tweet as a whole, regardless of whether it's a bait or a genuine opinion, just the way it is worded and everything like that is something that I wish Twitter users would do more compared to other Twitter users. So let's quickly unpack this right here, right now. So this user, where it says Demon Slayer as a series gets more hype. Yes, Demon Slayer does get more hype. This is an objective fact that more people who aren't into anime, they are very aware of what Demon Slayer is, whether they've seen, the marketing around. Even in my country of South Africa, the Demon Slayer movies, both for season, Mugen Train, which was before season 2, and the the recent one before season 3, those all aired in were on circuit in our local cinemas. So even normies here in South Africa know what Demon Slayer is, due to marketing, and not just that, but also because it's on Netflix. And you can watch it on Netflix, and it does get recommended on people's feeds based on what they watch. So people are aware of Demon Slayer. A lot of people know about Demon Slayer. Even some public figures, like certain politicians and whatnot, have all praised Demon Slayer and have pushed for it as a cultural export from Japan over in Japan. And yeah, it's definitely got a lot of hype behind it. Even the anime man, Joey, the anime man, said that his grandmother, his Japanese grandmother, likes Demon Slayer and watches it on television when it airs. So it's definitely got a lot of hype behind it. Lots of people, even elderly people, know what Demon Slayer is and enjoy it. As far as the animation, that I also agree with. I am a fan of Studio Ufotable. I think the animation is simply astounding. I would say more so with the Fate series and less with Demon Slayer. But, you know, that's just my bias of preferring Fate over Demon Slayer. But either way, Ufotable never have, at least as far as what I've experienced, visually, they have never let me down when it comes to animation. Sure, they might not always take on the best projects. There are some anime that they were doing in between Fate, where they had this brief period between Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works and and Demon Slayer, where they had like a few pretty mid projects they worked on, not in terms of visuals, but in terms of storytelling, where it was like, yeah, this is kind of, you know, whatever, it is what it is. But, you know, by the time Demon Slayer came around, it kind of like bolstered them again into relevancy since when they were last relevant with the Fate series. And of course, you have the Heaven's Feel movies as well, which also bolstered their popularity once again. So, yeah, animation is breathtaking. That cannot be disputed, really. Then the series has broken numerous records, from manga sales to box office sales. So the manga sales, yes, this is objectively true. The Demon Slayer manga actually outsold the entirety of the American comic book industry, and there's several factors to this. I know some people will claim it's purely because of the political propaganda being inserted into Marvel and DC books and other independent publishers like Image and Impact and IDW. You know, that's definitely a part of it, but I would say it's not the big part of it. I think the main reason why people are buying manga more than comic books, is particularly American comic books, not so much British and French comics, is the simple reason because, you know, it's a lot more difficult to get into comic books, you know, depending on what kind of comic book fan you're talking to and what kind of iteration of a character like Batman, Superman, or Spider-Man, or whatever they're into, depending on who you talk to and for what age they are and everything like that. Some of them will tell you different things. Some of them will tell you, hey, just start from the very first one all the way back in 1939. So now, congratulations, you've got almost 100 years worth of books, 80 years, I'd say, worth of books of a character to try and catch up on and read, regardless of whether you like the old stuff or not, to just so that you can try and understand the DC Comics world and the world of that character better. Or you might have your more modern comic reader who will just be like, nah, bro, just read these different storylines that were highly influential, from things like, if you're a Batman fan, you say, oh, read The Killing Joke, The Long Halloween, Hush, Hearts of Hush, Dark Knight Returns, all that. So they'll give you all the classic storylines and whatnot to check out, the stuff that's defined the character. But even then, even when they recommend you that stuff, there's still a lot of stuff in between that gets lost in translation, you miss out on. And I think the biggest thing that is a detriment to the American comic book industry is the fact that, you know, unlike the Japanese industry, where what is in the manga is typically what you see on the screen as well, there's no incentive to buy comics, really, because the version of Batman that you read in the comics is not the same that you saw in the movies or in games like the Arkham games or even in the animated series. It's just not the same character. It's completely different. So, yeah, that's another main reason why manga sells more. Not only that, manga, it's cheaper than a comic book and has a lot more content as well. Your average comic book is 24 pages long. And out of those 24 pages, most of them are adverts, so you're typically only getting 18 pages of story, and of course, because of the quality of paper and everything like that, it's just more expensive to buy a few issues of title that you're following. And not only that, you got to try and keep up with all these different events, of which comic book companies are doing too many of, so there's really no incentive to buy American comic books in this day and age. It's just too difficult to get into. Manga, you just start with volume 1, and a lot of manga have a clear-cut beginning and end. Yes, you've got your ongoing ones like One Piece that will like continue forever, but when it comes to something like Demon Slayer, the Demon Slayer manga is already finished. You can get all the volumes in a box set, something like that. You can read it, you can watch it, you can do whatever you want with it, and you'll still get the whole story. Everything's cool. So manga sales, yes, that is an absolute fact. Box office sales, little bit debatable, because yeah, sure, it's broken records in various records as far as like domestically in Japan and maybe in one or two other places across the world, but overall, compared to something like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, or maybe something like, I don't know, Avatar by James Cameron or something like that, no, it's not breaking records in that regard. So it's debatable, but then again, anime is only just kind of starting to become mainstream. Like superhero movies, they are dying, but they haven't died out yet. They haven't gone the way of the spaghetti westerns and whatnot just yet. They're just hanging on for dear life right now. So yeah, so compared to that, it's still going to be a while before a show will come along and surpass Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan, both of which caused massive waves in as far as propelling anime more into the mainstream camera. There will have to be something that surpasses these two and gets really, really, really popular to the point that everyone and their grandma is watching it. And I mean on an international scale, not domestically, just within Japan. So it's going to be a while for that to happen. But now we get to the part that I disagree with, the whole, let's not disrespect Demon Slayer and the Vinland Saga thing. So the disrespect, then I think, this person down here may have worded their tweet, or like as I said, this is the problem with Twitter discussions. They put this thing here, they state their opinion as a fact, whatnot, and everything like that. I don't think this person meant to disrespect Demon Slayer, but they, they probably, after this whole interaction, they probably think less of Demon Slayer now than what they did before, because, Demon Slayer Stan's got a Demon Slayer Stan. But, like as I said, it's all in the wording of certain things, and I really do think it's something that people on Twitter need to be a little bit more mindful of when wording their stuff. So that's also something where I'm going to give this person props about their wording compared to this person. So as we say here, like disrespect, I think this person meant it more as a critique. Like Vinland Saga does use have a lot more realistic character development as opposed to more idealized character development. It's a lot more realistic, or if not even realistic, believable at least. And of course it's a lot more symbolic and everything like that compared to Demon Slayer. Disrespect versus critique, kind of hard to say. Like, I mean, I don't know how this person feels right now, especially after having their take go so viral on a quote tweet, and potential, Demon Slayer stans might coming to harass them over their opinion. But, whatever. This is just Twitter being Twitter. So let's not disrespect. I mean, like, sure, people, the thing is, we can critique Demon Slayer, and if someone really doesn't like it, they're allowed to. So to say they're not allowed to, or not disrespect or whatever, it's a bit of a stretch, but people are allowed to express their opinion on something they like or don't like. But yeah, that's the one thing. But now we get to the main thing I disagree with, which is his opinion that that Demon Slayer is better written than Vinland Saga. So the reason why I disagree with this is, well, for starters, okay, actually, before I get into that, firstly, props to you, my dude. You said, in my opinion. So just the mere fact that you included that in your tweet, that's a huge props from, that deserves props from me, because too many people on Twitter state their opinion as a fact. And you at least said this is in your opinion, and you're saying that it's your own subjective feeling, your own personal feelings on the story. So good on you for being very articulate on that case. Anyway, so going back to my point about why I disagree that Demon Slayer is better than Vinland Saga. So Demon Slayer, if we have to be really honest here, Demon Slayer is a generic shonen. And when I say generic shonen, what I mean is that it follows the same shonen formula that has been done time and time and time again in previous shonen stories. Now, you might be typing in the comments, well, generic, you're implying that it's bad and whatnot. No, what I mean by generic is that it's a formula that exists. It's a formula that works. There's no need to change it other than tweak a few things here and there. But otherwise, like as far as like maybe setting or what genre it takes place in and everything like that, in order to make sure that constantly has a fresh new take on it each time. But as far as the overall formula, Demon Slayer is not doing anything special. The only thing Demon Slayer is doing differently from its contemporaries, or its predecessors, like My Hero Academia, Bleach, One Piece, Naruto, Inuyasha, Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball, all these other shonen that have big shonen series that came before it. The only thing it's doing differently is the setting. The setting of Demon Slayer is basically, almost like somewhat end of the samurai period kind of era, where, Japan's starting to slowly become a bit more modernized and everything at the turn of the century. And not only that, but it's instead of using pirates or ninjas or soul reapers or martial arts guys who can blow up planets and everything like that, who can channel their chi to blow up planets and everything like that, it's instead using the trope of the supernatural bounty hunter, which of course originated in the early 20th century in pulp magazines by I'm sure a lot of you, even who aren't into comic books and pulps and everything like that. Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan the Barbarian, before he had success with Conan the Barbarian, he created a character known as Solomon Kane. And Solomon Kane was the first supernatural bounty hunter character. He would go around, as the marketing would call it, he would go about vanquishing evil wherever he saw it. And part of that evil, because people were a lot more religious during those times, a lot more into their Christian faith during those times, Solomon Kane would often encounter things like, demons and everything like that, and he would go hunt them down and kill them, because he has vowed to exterminate all forms of evil in the world, human made evil or otherwise. So he was the first supernatural bounty hunter in fiction. And then, of course, following after him, you would have, things like Vampire Hunter D, also highly influenced by Solomon Kane. And then later on, you would have in the 2000s, you would have the Hugh Jackman version of Van Helsing and whatnot. And so you would, all these different, and then you'd have comic book characters like Blade. So these are all the supernatural bounty hunter trope, and all Demon Slayer is doing is taking that trope and doing a more anime shonen spin on that take, and then of course you have stuff that is classified as shonen but leans more on the seinen side of things as far as its themes and its storytelling is concerned. Like you have anime like Claymore that have also done things like this, an organization that hunts down monsters before, but whereas Claymore while it was a success as a manga, it wasn't a huge success as an anime in Japan. That's why it didn't get any subsequent seasons or even has mention of a reboot or anything like that. Unfortunately, it won't begin a reboot anytime soon. But Claymore did this idea first about an organization that hunts down demonic creatures, although Claymore had it set in a more European setting, while Demon Slayer is, of course, set closer to home for Japanese people and their culture and their history. So that is all that Demon Slayer is doing differently to the shonen formula. It's not doing anything like, say, what the Chainsaw Man or even Claymore did, where it pushed the envelope and the boundaries and experimented with the formula more and with the tropes of the characters more. And not only that, but I think also with Demon Slayer and every other shonen like it, it's a very idealized form of storytelling. Like, a lot of cultures do this with their stories. You have a character, a larger than life character who's the hero of the story, and all of his morals and his moral compass and their virtue and everything like that. They're supposed to help young people, because shonen is marketed towards young boys. It's supposed to help people aspire to be better people with better morals, be hardworking, everything like that. So it's a very youthful and naive and optimistic form of storytelling, which is, again, it's not a bad thing at all. We need these kinds of stories, and the formula works. It's a good thing that these stories exist, and they do need to exist. And whether you are a teenager enjoying this stuff, or even if you're someone my age, like I'm close to 30, and I enjoy a lot of these types of shonen stories, and all that, these stories do need to continue existing. They are a very important part of every culture and storytelling in general. They're very important. They do need to exist, and Demon Slayer is a very important piece of fiction in that regard. But when it comes to Vinland Saga, the thing is, Vinland Saga is grounded more in realism. Now, whether you could, certain aspects of it are realistic or not, especially when it comes to action scenes or who can survive an injury, all the little nitpicky kind of stuff you can pick apart and everything like that and debate with people on. Yes, that stuff's not realistic. That falls more into believability, But as far as the realism is concerned of the story, just the way the characters like Thorfinn and his development from going from being a vengeful, murdering kid to being almost like a pacifist, like his father, after all he's been through and everything like that. Like, this is some pretty realistic, if not at best believable, character developments grounded in actual history that took place in reality, even if some events are a bit more idealized and fictionalized. But it's if those are even words. But but that is what has happened with Vinland Saga. And mind you, you are only a kid in your life. You're only a kid until about the age of 21. Like, society considers you a kid. Because you spend the first years of your life, your 2 decades of your life, you spend them going to school, playing with your friends on the playground or after school, or playing video games, whatever, handing out, and the only responsibilities that you have are your studies. But then by the time you hit 21, you've typically left the house, or even if you are still living with your parents, you're going out and you're working. You have to pay bills. You have to be a breadwinner of some kind. You got to grind. You got to work. You got all these responsibilities. You eventually you fall in love. You get married. You have kids. Or even or whatever. Adult life happens, and then you are in that phase of your life, or in those years of your life, you spend more years as an adult more than what you do as a kid. And the older you get and the more you see things like Demon Slayer, it's more idealized outlook on the world. It's more optimistic outlook on the world. It doesn't really resonate nearly as much with you, and the only things you start appreciating with it more is things like, say, the animation or the soundtrack or the character design, or anything that's a bit more technical about it, or the more like surface level stuff that you observe and you're like, oh, I can understand now why this is popular, or oh, it strikes this particular chord with me. Like I've watched Demon Slayer up until episode 19, and then I had to drop it and put it on hold, not because it's not good, but because I just want the entire series to be completely finished, being animated, so that I can properly binge it as a whole instead of having to wait for seasons to come out. But based on what I've watched with it, the story itself does not really particularly resonate with me too much. The story is fairly, I would say, again, generic shonen, but everything else about it is great. It's visually spectacular. I love the character designs. The action is great. The comedy, okay, some of the comedy can be a bit of a miss, especially when it comes to, I think his name is Zenitsu, the blonde-haired character who has the two personalities. Like, I'm not gonna lie, he's a very annoying character. I do not like him at all. He's constantly loud, and in my opinion, loud does not equate to being funny. But, it's just, but it's still something I can deal with, But, the thing is, when I was watching Demon Slayer, I wasn't being gripped into it for the story. I was being more gripped into it for the spectacle, because I've watched stuff like this before. I've watched things like Demon Slayer before. And, even when I go back and I watch that stuff that I've watched, that I've seen before, whether it's Bleach or Naruto or whatever, the story beats don't hit nearly as deeply as they did. It feels more like I'm watching nostalgia, or I am ignoring the nostalgia and I'm focusing more on the other aspect, the visual aspect, the design, or maybe the sound design, the soundscapes and everything. That's what I tend to focus on more, and it becomes something that it's more like watching a piece of art I can appreciate. That is what shows like Demon Slayer eventually become for me as I get older. Vinland Saga, on the other hand, tends to become something that, the longer I am alive as an adult, it's just its themes and the subject matter it deals with and everything like that tends to resonate with me more, because, you go through a lot of things in adult life, and a lot of these things are going to impact you in some way, and it's very often that stories like this help you cope with those things more, and help you understand how these things work better than something like Demon Slayer or Bleach or Dragon Ball or whatever tends to do. So as far as any objective measures of Vinland Saga being better written, that's what I would say, objectively speaking, is what makes Vinland Saga better than Demon Slayer. But then, of course, there is my bias into it, where it's like, yes, I'm a fan of historical fiction. I do, it's even in my channel name, AnimetalViking. I do like Viking history and Viking music. I listen to a lot of Viking metal bands like a Monomath or even Bathory. So yeah, I enjoy a lot of that stuff. But and then of course, games like Skyrim that are very influenced by Viking culture and everything. So yeah, I'm call that a bias, and that is part of my opinion. But then, like as I said, just the way Vinland Saga tackles these things like grief, loss, war, its impact on society, the politics between warring factions and kingdoms and everything like that, and how it shapes the world that we're in today. It's that kind of stuff, especially as you get older, tends to have a greater impact on you than something where it's like, oh, we can beat anything with the power of friendship and love and all these things that your typical shonen tends to put out there. So yeah, it's not that Demon Slayer is bad or mid or anything like that. It's just Demon Slayer is something that exists. It is important. It is relevant. But at the end of the day, let's not kid ourselves as if it's something fresh, new, and exciting in terms of what it's doing as far as a story. The only thing that it is doing fresh, new, and exciting is that it's got a a studio that can animate stuff amazingly well behind it. It's got a very different and unique art style compared to a lot of the other anime and manga out there, and it's something that can easily be turned into merchandise. It's easily marketable to people, even to people who are not into anime. Like I've seen videos like when Dog VA was doing his crane game stuff, and you can actually get like win swords, like replica little swords and prize figures and whatnot in the crane game machines at the arcade and everything like that. It's something that is very merchandisable, and that is easy to market, and that is what I think has contributed to its success more so than its actual story. And not only that, but just a lot of kids are getting into manga now, and there's a huge explosion in sales, and there's a lot more incentive to read ahead in the manga, because what you're seeing in the anime is what is in the manga. And Ufotable are taking what would have been a pretty standard manga as far as like paneling and art style is concerned, and they have turned it into basically Hollywood blockbuster spectacle. So that is the only reason why I would say Demon Slayer is doing better than Vinland Saga. But I'm pretty sure that a lot of the teenagers and the kids consuming Demon Slayer right now, I'm pretty sure that as they grow up and then they start branching out into different genres of anime consumption, they're checking out your seinens, your joseis, and all this other kind of stuff, they are going to basically read Vinland Saga or watch Vinland Saga, and I can guarantee right now it's probably going to resonate with them more than Demon Slayer did as they get older. So I'm not too worried about takes like this, but this is just a fun little thing I thought I would cover. So I would say props to this user. Thanks for giving me some content to cover, and props to this individual as well to getting an actual conversation going. But yeah, that's all I have to say on the subject. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll be happy to read your thoughts and see what you have to say. Also, guys, don't forget to check the links in the description box below to all my social media, and of course be sure to subscribe to both this channel and to the main channel where all the higher production content is. It really helps out. And also make sure to check out my Patreon, where I will be posting exclusive content for not just videos for the channel, but also with regards to my own manga project. Again, if you're interested in my manga project, it's going to be very I don't want to reveal too much about it, but it's very influenced by the likes of Berserk, Case Study of Vanitas, Robert E. Howard's work of Solomon Kane, and of course horror authors like H.P. Lovecraft, as well as people like Guillermo del Toro. If you are into that sort of thing and it sounds up your alley, make sure you check out my Patreon to get access to that early content, and hopefully by the time the release comes, I hope you guys will support it as well. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I'm AnimetalViking, and until the next episode, take care of yourselves, and as always, have a kick-ass day. Cheers.